Hello everyone, I am Sreerupa, a PT academic expert from Y Coaching Solutions Private Limited. Welcome to my series of videos on tips and strategies of PTE. In today's lesson, I'm going to discuss about a particular task type that we have for the speaking test of PTE, and that is written lecture. Now, this is the fourth task type that you are going to have on the day of the examination. Okay, and this task type has got a considerable amount of weightage. Okay, now what is meant by written lecture? You are going to listen to a lecture and you have to come up with the condensed version of the lecture. That is your task. Okay, now how many questions will you get? Around 3 to 4 such questions. The total marks will be, I would say each question has got a weightage of 15 marks. Okay, and the test takers generally get three such questions, 3 to 4. So if you have 3 written lecture questions, then in that case the total weightage, as you can understand, the total weightage will be 45 marks. If there are 4, then of course 60 marks. Okay, so why do we say that we have 15 marks for each written lecture question? That is because 5 marks we have for content, 5 marks for fluency, and 5 marks for pronunciation. So oral fluency, content, and pronunciation, each and every scoring parameter has got a good role to play. So what are you expected to do on the day of the examination? You will first listen to the lecture, which will be played, of course, and sometimes there can be an image on the screen too. The image is definitely related to the content of the lecture. However, the image does not help you to retell the lecture in your own words. Okay, so you listen to the audio which would be played for you, and depending upon the content of the lecture, the audio will be played for around 1.5 to 2 minutes for sure. And when you are listening to the lecture for this 1.5 to 2 minutes, note taking is mandatory. Without note taking, we can never get a good score in our written lecture. Okay, so without any kind of I would say you know uh, hesitations or anything, we just need to take notes. We cannot be a selective listener and take note of few words and not take note of a few other words. While listening to the lecture, take notes. Okay, and focus on note taking when you're practicing for the examination, because it's all about taking notes in those 1.5 to 2 minutes. So if you have your own abbreviations and short forms, that is really going to help you on the day of the examination. So have your own abbreviations, your own short forms, and try to take notes as much as possible, because that's the key to success. Okay, so for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, you have to take notes. Once done with that, you get just 10 seconds of prep time, which is definitely not a lot of time, right? So in these 10 seconds, quickly have a look at the notes that you have jotted down on your erasable notepad. First, focus on the main idea of the lecture. That is very important. Okay, so what the lecture is all about, the topic of the lecture, the subject matter of the lecture, what is the main idea of the speaker or the lecturer. Okay, and then of course few supporting ideas will be there in the lecture. So it totally depends upon your note taking, whether you have been able to jot down all those supporting ideas or few of those. Okay, fine. So in those 10 seconds, figure out the main idea of the lecture. That is very important. That is going to fetch you the score. Okay, and 10 seconds is not much time. After that, you get to listen to the beep tone, which means that now it's time to speak. So you have to come up with the condensed version of the lecture. So you listen to a lecture for around 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and then you retell the lecture in just 40 seconds. So one thing is understandable. The computer grader never expects you to discuss about each and every minor details. So remember, you don't need to talk about the name of a person, or maybe name of an institute was also mentioned, or maybe a specific year was mentioned, you don't need to talk about each and every minor details. So when you uh, retell the lecture in your own words, you have to make sure that you include the main idea of the lecture without fail. Okay, and then one or two supporting ideas is what you need to include, and that's enough to get a good score. Okay, since we have 5 marks for oral fluency, 5 marks for pronunciation, and 5 marks for content, we have to take care of each of the scoring parameters. So while we speak, we cannot hesitate. Okay, do not take long pauses, please. Definitely you have to take pause as and when required. But if we take a pause for 3 seconds or more than 3 seconds, we lose the opportunity, right? We don't get score for that question at all. So make sure not to take a pause of 3 seconds or more than 3 seconds. Fine. And yes, you are retelling the lecture in your own words. So good language construction has a role to play. Now, here I have a tip for you. Always when you start the speech, okay, your condensed version of the lecture, mention what the lecture was all about. Make sure that the subject matter, the topic of the lecture is always mentioned. That is the first sentence. So there should be an introductory sentence. And it can be as simple as the lecture is about such and such thing. The lecturer speaks about microscopes. So you're saying that what is the lecture all about? So mention what is it all about, and then make use of suitable discourse markers in order to maintain the flow. So you can follow this template. The lecture is about whatever it is. The lecturer discusses about this. He further emphasizes this. In addition to that, so when you say he further emphasizes, in addition to that, so these kind of words are known as linkers or suitable discourse markers, which help you to maintain the flow, because we cannot pause and start thinking what was it, right? So we have to keep speaking at length. Voice modulation, enunciation, diction, everything has got a good role to play. Clear? So you have a total of 40 seconds to retell the lecture. Now try to speak for at least 37 seconds. Make sure that you're not done in less than 30 seconds, because that will affect the score. When the test taker speaks for less than 30 seconds, the computer grader understands that the test taker has not done justice to the content of the lecture. Okay, so we have to speak at length at least for 37 seconds. Okay, and of course, as you can understand, it totally depends upon note taking. If you have not taken notes, okay, we will not be able to speak at length for 37 seconds, and that will negatively affect the score. Fine. Now, while you're retelling the lecture, make sure do not express your own opinion. Do not add any information from outside knowledge. That is definitely going to affect the score. Okay, fine. So these are the few things that I have jotted down for you on the whiteboard. So as mentioned right now, note taking is very important. The success purely depends upon note taking when it comes to retell lecture. Then you are not expected to talk about minor details. Focus on what the lecture is about, the main idea of the speaker, and just two supporting ideas. That should be enough. Okay. And do not share information from background knowledge. Just because you have to speak for 37 seconds, that doesn't mean that I don't have content right now. So the timer is showing 28 seconds. So what can I do right now? I will add information from outside knowledge. That will really affect the score. Okay, so do not add any information from outside knowledge. And when it comes to your retail lecture, the conclusion is the not necessary at all. Okay, if you remember in my previous video, I did mention that for describe image, a concluding sentence is a must. Okay, because that conclusion itself fetches you 1 mark. However, when it comes to your retail lecture, there is no such rule. So you can ignore the conclusion. You don't need to round off your speech with a concluding sentence. Okay, fine. So there we go. Let me quickly help you recap this. So the task type that we have is what? Retail lecture. It has got a lot of weightage. So retail lecture means if you listen to lecture and you have to come up with the condensed version of what you have listened to, and you have just 40 seconds to do so. You listen to a lecture which would be played for you, okay, for 2 minutes, 1.5 to 2 minutes, and then you have to come up with the condensed version. And when you are retelling the lecture, of course, you're retelling in your own words. So language construction has got a good role to play. Okay, altogether we have 15 marks for each retail lecture question, 5 marks for content, 5 for oral fluency, and 5 for pronunciation. And we have to take care of each of these scoring parameters in order to get a good score, and we can get full marks. There is no negative marking. There is something known as partial credit. So when you listen to the lecture, focus on note taking, have your own abbreviations and short forms. As long as you understand whatever you have written on your erasable notepad, it's perfectly fine. Then you get 10 seconds of prep time. In those 10 seconds, quickly skim through the notes that you have jotted down on the erasable notepad. Focus on the main idea of the speaker, and at least two supporting ideas should be included when you retell the lecture in your own words. When you start retelling the lecture, okay, in your own words, make sure there is always an introductory sentence. So it can be as simple as the lecture is about this. In order to maintain the flow, make use of suitable linkers. The lecturer discusses about this. He further emphasizes upon this. In addition to that, so this kind of words like he further emphasizes, in addition to that, these are known as linkers, which help you to keep, to speak at length, because we cannot take a pause, right? As in, we cannot take pause suddenly and start thinking what to say. So the linkers help you to maintain the flow. Linkers help you when it comes to cohesion and coherence. Okay, that is very important. And when you see that like 35 seconds over, so now you will know that now it's time to wrap up. Okay, you should speak for at least 37 seconds. If we end up speaking for less than 30 seconds, that is definitely going to affect the score. So keeping these things in mind, keep these tips in mind, and accordingly practice. Okay, give enough time to your preparation, and yes, give your best shot on the day of the examination. As we know, practice will make us perfect. So practice, prepare well, and perform well. So everything has to be taken care of. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you soon with another tip on how to get a good score in your PT examination. Bye bye. Take care.